Notice, in accordance with the new copy regulations, this episode, Quoth the Raven, is intended for ages 16 and up. While some of the content we will feature is kid-friendly sometimes, the context of the episodes is to address adults and inform them of said content for the research as consumers and service of their youth. In other words, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, teachers, librarians, etc. There is a possibility of adult language present on the episode as well. Rated TV 16 and up. Sorry about that sound there. My co-host is getting final things ready.
Yep.
And welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to Quoth the Raven, Bright Raven. It is Friday night genre talk, Kaiju Attack, with my co-host Figaro, John Norris.
Hi, everybody.
And this is kind of a whirlwind episode because that was not the plan this week. The plan was actually horror genre comics, but my two other guests that were supposed to be here this week forgot that they had a convention to go to Saturday and had to leave tonight to get to where they were going. So it was like, oops.
That's a heck of a thing to forget.
Well, yeah. Well, they remembered on Thursday night, told me Friday in like around noon, which gave me some time to try and find something. But at the same time, it was like Friday is like the worst day to try and schedule anybody at the last minute because most people have their weekends planned well in advance. So it is what it is. So we kind of put our heads together and come up with a dull thud and said, hey, what's on movies? And we came up with Kaiju because of the new Godzilla vs. Khan movie.
Which neither of us have seen yet.
No, neither one of us have seen yet. So we're going to talk about other movies that'll hopefully you have already seen, or if you haven't seen, maybe you'll at least whet your appetite for this kind of genre of film. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start with one of my favorites, Colossal.
Yes.
From 2016. Mm-hmm. Written and directed by Nacho Vigalondo, produced by Nahikari Apina, Russell Levine, Nicholas Chartier, Zev Foreman, and Dominic Rustam. The genre is science fiction black comedy, starring Anne Hathaway, Jason Sudeikis, Dan Stevens, Austin Stowell, and Tim Blake. It's supposed to be Nelson. I don't know why that got cut off there. Production companies are Voltage Pictures, Route 1 Entertainment, Legion and Union Investment Partners, Sayaka Producciones, and Bright Light Pictures. It was distributed by Neon in the United States, and it was released on April 7th, 2017, even though it was a 2016 movie, and we'll get into why that was in a minute. The running time is 1 hour and 50 minutes, and it's rated R for language and violence. Now, we're going to spoil these films. We're going to tell you what they're about. So if you're one of these people that, you're spoiling the film, I haven't seen it, maybe not, you know what you want to do. But anyway, what it's about. Gloria, our lead character, played by Anne Hathaway, is an unemployed writer struggling with alcoholism. Her boyfriend, Tim, frustrated with her errant behavior, breaks up with her and evicts her from their New York City apartment. Thus forced to move back to her hometown of Mayhead, New England, Gloria reunites with her childhood friend Oscar, played by Jason Sudeikis, who now runs his late father's bar. Oscar warmly welcomes Gloria and offers her a job at the bar, which she accepts. Unfortunately, working at the bar aggravates Gloria's alcohol problem. After each shift, she drinks with Oscar and his friends, Garth and Joel, until morning, then sleeps it off on a bench near a playground. At the same time, a giant reptilian monster appears in Seoul, Korea, leaving death and destruction in its wake. Gloria realizes when she walks through the playground at exactly 8:05 a.m., she causes the monster to manifest and can remotely control it. Gloria shares her discovery with Oscar and his friends by dancing in the playground while they watch a newsfeed of the monster mimicking her movements. When a helicopter launches a missile at the monster, though, Gloria lashes out and destroys the helicopter, killing its pilot. This kind of snaps her awake, and she realizes the seriousness of the situation, and she panics and collapses. She awakens to find that Oscar also manifests in Seoul, but he's a giant robot. She tries to make amends by having the monster spell out an apology in Korean, to the delight of the South Korean people and media. She begins to avoid both the playground and alcohol. After spending the night with Joel, Gloria discovers a drunken Oscar controlling the robot, trying to taunt South Korea. After a tense confrontation, she makes him leave. Oscar thinks something has happened between Gloria and Joel and is jealous of them. But nothing has happened. That night, he drunkenly insults his friends at the bar and demands Gloria have a beer, threatening to return to the playground if she refuses. The next morning, a sober Oscar apologizes to Gloria. Tim, her ex-boyfriend, arrives in town to see Gloria, but is irritated by and dismissive about her life situation. Upon meeting Tim at the bar, Oscar provokes a confrontation between them by setting off fireworks indoors. He boasts that regardless of his behavior, Gloria will not leave with Tim. He later goes to her house and messes things up to prevent her from leaving with Tim. These actions cause her to have a flashback, and it reveals that Gloria had made a paper diorama of Seoul, Korea as a school project when they were children. When it is blown over a playground, Oscar retrieves it, but jealous that her diorama is better than his, he smashes it. Gloria's anger triggers some sort of effect in the area, and lightning strikes the both of them, including Oscar's toy robot and her toy reptilian monster. So all these years later, what has happened is this lightning effect merged them and created these beings. Back in the present, Gloria recognizes Oscar's manipulative behavior and actions towards her, combined with destroyed photos and other clues around his house that arise from his self-hatred, and she resolves to leave town with Tim. Enraged by her decision, Oscar races for a playground, and Gloria finds means to best him and get there before him and prepares to fight to keep him off the playground. And Oscar beats Gloria. He gut punches her, he kicks her down. It is a brutal scene. I mean, it is something that, it's not like, she's definitely got a black eye, if I remember correctly. But it's not like blood or anything like that. But it was just, it's a very realistic depiction of domestic violence. Let's put it that way. As she's incapacitated and laying on the ground, she has to watch as Oscar stomps around the playground, killing thousands of innocent lives over in Seoul, Korea. He then tells her she can leave, but every morning that she's not there, he's going to stomp the yard. So Gloria tells Tim that she can't go with him, but she reaches a point of clarity and realizes what she has to do. She boards a plane for Seoul, Korea. And when Oscar arrives the next morning and she's not there, he proceeds to call forth his robot. Only now, Gloria's in Seoul, and she can manifest her monster in front of him in Maine because she's on the opposite side of the planet now. And the parallels of where their juxtaposition of their bodies are, she's now opposite him in Maine as the monster. And here comes the beatdown.
Yes.
Now, we're not going to get into too much. Basically, she destroys Oscar and flings him across the horizon. His robot disappears, and thus she can call her own monster back within herself. Having saved Seoul, she is not just saving the city, but metaphorically her own soul, hence why it's called Seoul, Korea. That was an intentional connection there. And she comes to terms with her own personal demons as an alcoholic and other things she has going on, and realizes she has the inner strength to overcome them. 5-star movie.
Yep.
No question. When we both went to see this, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 had been out for like 2 or 3 weeks at the time already, and I had not seen it. And John was like, well, we'll go to see Guardians again. I said, well, haven't you seen it? Yeah, I've seen it twice already. And I was like, why the hell are we going to go see a movie you've already seen twice? It's like, well, I give Marvel more money. I can wait for a DVD. And I wanted to see this movie more than I wanted to see Guardians anyway. So I kind of made him go to see this. What was your reaction? Do you remember?
Well, let me put it this way. I have Colossal on Blu-ray. I do not have Guardians of the Galaxy 2 on Blu-ray. So I have not seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2 since that second time I've seen it in the theater. And I've watched Colossal several more times since then. It absolutely blew me away. And I think part of the reason...
I can remember you saying, thank you. Thank you for making me go see this movie.
Yep. Well, because for one thing, and it's not like I had no interest in seeing it, but the trailers for this movie were very misleading, I thought. The trailers made it look like more of a really quirky comedy to me, which it most definitely is not.
Oh no, it's dark.
It's one of those movies that is much better than the trailers make it out to be.
Yeah, unfortunately, this film did not make its money back.
No,
in box office, and one of the reasons it took so long to come out, even though it was a 2016 film, it didn't come out until 2017, was because when they made presentations to get funding for the film, they used some clips from Toho's Godzilla, and Toho found out about it and sued them. And there was a settlement, and I guess Toho got to release it in Japan as a Toho film, I think is how it worked out, or something like that. But ultimately, it was not their intention to say Godzilla was going to be in the film in any way, shape, or form. They just hadn't gotten around to designing the creatures yet. Actually, I think I love the way they designed the creatures.
Yeah.
Jason Sudeikis is, they say he's cast against type. I don't know if he's really cast against type, but I mean, he is so incredibly creepy in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not familiar with his body of work outside of, what he's better known for or anything. I guess he's a comedian actor.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, the whole movie, you wanted to do what was done to him at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
You were just waiting.
And he starts out like you think he's going to be a decent guy when the movie starts out, but over time he reveals his true colors, and he did a really good job, because you really hate the guy.
Yeah, you hate the character, not Jason.
Right? Yeah,
the character.
And I thought this was one of Anne Hathaway's best performances too.
Yes, it definitely is. And yet the character is not entirely sympathetic, because she is flawed, and there's reason enough to dislike her too for her actions and behaviors. Yes, she is redeemed. She takes redemptive behavior at the end of the movie, but at the beginning of the movie, she is not a very likable character in her own right.
Right.
And
but she and basically when she and him, they have opposite character arcs.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. There are some really crazy things though in that movie. I mean, I was just, and I don't know about you, but the first time we watched it in the theater, it was uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
Because of the way the transition of the characters was going. You could see the arc coming, and you could see, is she going to have enough sense to get out of this before, it gets to the point of physical violence, which she doesn't, of course. She gets really badly injured. I don't know if they really emphasize how badly injured she really was. Because, it wasn't just a gut punch. I think he broke her ribs in that scene.
I think so.
Yes. So because she was having difficulty breathing, or that was what was being portrayed. So yeah, it's like it was a very crazy thing there, but definitely one of my favorite films of the last decade, at least.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to our next film, and I'll let you introduce it.
All right. Godzilla 2014, directed by Gareth Edwards, produced by Thomas Tull, John Jashney, Mary Parent, and Brian Rogers, screenplay by Max Borenstein, story by David Callahan, based on, of course, Toho's Godzilla, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen, Ken Watanabe, Juliette Binoche, Sally Hawkins, David Strathairn, and Bryan Cranston. Production companies Legendary Pictures, distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures Worldwide, and of course, Toho in Japan. Release date May 16th, 2014. Running time 2 hours, 3 minutes, rated PG-13. So what it's about, in 1954, Godzilla, a prehistoric alpha predator, is lured to Bikini Atoll in an attempt to kill him with a nuclear bomb. In 1999, Monarch scientists Ishiro Serizawa and Vivian Graham investigate the skeleton of a monster similar to Godzilla in a cavern unearthed by a collapsed uranium mine in the Philippines. They also find 2 giant spores, one dormant and one hatched, along with a trail leading to the sea. In Japan, the Janjira nuclear power plant experiences unusual seismic activity as Supervisor Joe Brody sends his wife Sandra to lead a team of technicians into the reactor. A tremor breaches the reactor, forcing Joe to close the reactor door before Sandra and her team can escape while the plant collapses. 15 years later, Joe and Sandra's son Ford, a U.S. Navy EOD officer, returns from a tour of duty to his wife Elle and son Sam in San Francisco, but must immediately depart for Japan after Joe is detained for trespassing in Janjira's quarantine zone. Joe is determined to find out the cause of the meltdown and persuades Ford to accompany him to retrieve vital data from their old home. They discover the zone is uncontaminated and retrieve the data, but are discovered and taken to a facility in the plant's ruins. The facility harbors a massive chrysalis that had been feeding off the plant's reactors for 15 years and emitting strong electromagnetic pulses over time. A giant winged insect-like creature emerges from the chrysalis and escapes, destroying the facility. Joe is severely injured and later dies. The incident is reported publicly as an earthquake. Serizawa and Graham join a U.S. Navy task force led by Admiral William Spence to search for the creature, dubbed a MUTO, or Massive Unidentified Terrestrial Organism. Serizawa and Graham revealed to Ford that a 1954 deep-sea expedition awakened Godzilla, and nuclear tests in the 1950s were actually attempts to kill him. When this did not work, Project Monarch was established to secretly study Godzilla and similar monsters. The remaining warhead is airlifted with Ford to San Francisco, where the monsters are converging and activated after Godzilla appears at the Golden Gate Bridge, only for the male Muto to snatch it and take it to the female, who forms a nest around it in the Chinatown area. While Godzilla and the Mutos battle, Ford and a strike team enter the city via halo jump to find and disarm the warhead before it detonates. Unable to access the timer, the team gets the warhead on a boat for disposal at sea, while Ford destroys the nest. Godzilla defeats the Mutos and collapses on the shore from exhaustion. Ford gets the boat out to open sea, is rescued before the warhead explodes, and reunites with his family at an emergency shelter the following morning. Godzilla reawakens and returns to the sea, while the media dubs him the king of the monsters and speculate whether he might be a savior. Rating 3.5 stars.
Yeah. Whoops, wrong button. I actually did see this with you and Tracy.
No, we saw the second one. We saw Godzilla King of the Monsters together.
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I saw the first one with a friend of mine who he lives in Florida, and he came up like literally just so we could spend some time together. And I knew he was a huge Godzilla fan, and it just happened to be opening weekend of Godzilla. So it's like, dude, we're going. Okay. And we both liked it. I think I could have used. I mean, the humans were actually great, which is not something you can always say about kaiju films. But I could have used a little more Godzilla personally.
Okay.
But
yeah, you gave it a 4. I gave it a 3. But I am not a huge. I'm not a huge kaiju guy, really. It really takes a really good film to give me some. Otherwise it's kind of like, yeah, it's there, and that's kind of how this was for me.
Yeah. So like I could like I wanted more Godzilla, but I do think it was very well done, and the humans, were very well done, especially Bryan Cranston's character.
Okay. So if we saw King of the Monsters together with Tracy,
yeah,
that's the follow-up story, though, right?
Yes, that's the one with King Ghidorah and
Mothra, right? And it's Joe's daughter.
I think so.
Yeah, because that's what I was trying to remember. I was like because I was reading the description of this as I was setting up the graphics. I'm like, this sounds like the film that we saw together, but it's not quite right because where's Mothra?
Yeah.
So, and then I realized, no, wait a minute, this is the movie that came before it. So,
yeah.
But I see that with Tracy too. I just couldn't remember,
Yeah.
So.
But I have to say, of course, I mean, at this point in Godzilla's career, he's been redesigned so many times but I actually liked this design. I thought they did a good job with it, and I have to say,
needed more spikes. I don't know if I'm remembering. I mean, it was better in King of the Monsters than in the first one.
Yeah.
I think that they tweaked it enough that they got it right the second time. More.
But I will say, so my friend and I were in the theater, and it's like, we kept wondering, okay, like, when's Godzilla going to use his breath? It's like they kept, and when the moment finally came, and I don't normally say this about a Godzilla movie, about a Godzilla film, but so when the moment finally came where he used his breath and you see his spikes light up. It's like,
Well, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
here we go. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. I mean, it's kind of weird that they do that, because, as you say, the characters evolved so many times with so many films over the last 60 years they've been doing the character, that, when did they didn't always glow when he breathed fire. That came a little bit into it, if I remember correctly. But
I think so.
yeah, but it's, again, this is why I need to go get Godzilla guy, right? He can tell us all these little tidbits of information. If you don't know who we mean by Godzilla guy, there's a local guy in our area that's known as the Godzilla guy. His name's Sean McGinnis, and he's like just bonkers about the character. He knows everything about everything when it comes to that stuff. So, but really didn't have time to ask. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to our next one. And that is Manzinger Z from 2017. It's an animated feature film directed by Junji Shimizu. Screenplay by Takahiro Ozawa, based on Mazinger Z by Go Nagai, the animated series, starring Shotaro Murakubo, Ai Kayano, Sumire Iwasaka, and Unsho Ishizuka. Production company is Toei Animation, distributed by Viz Media. Release date October 28th, 2017. 1 hour, 34-minute running time with a rated TV 14. Have you seen this?
I have not.
Okay. What it's about is this is an animated feature film that's a sequel to the Mazinger and Great Mazinger animated series. It takes place 10 years after the end of the war against Dr. Hell and his mechanical beasts, and Earth lives in the era of peace thanks to the development of photonic energy for peaceful purposes. Mazinger Z's pilot, Koji Kabuto, has retired from doing, adventuring and become a distinguished scientist after his father and grandfather, while Sayaka Yumi is now the director of the Photon Research Institute after her father, Dr. Yumi, became the Prime Minister of Japan. Great Mazinger's pilot, Tetsuya Suguri, is still in the military and married to Jun Huno, who is expecting their first child. Koji's younger brother, Shiro, is also a military mecha pilot. While constructing the Institute's building, they find an enormous robot buried beneath Mount Fuji, which they codename Infinity. When Koji comes to investigate, a girl emerges from inside. Lisa, a 91% organic artificial intelligence. And my page doesn't want to load. Which is Lisa's is the robot's main control unit. And she's 91% organic artificial intelligence with feelings. Unfortunately, shortly before this, the presumed dead Dr. Hell reemerges, and they don't realize this, and he attacks the Institute with new mechanical beasts, as well as his henchmen Baron Ashura and Count Brocken, and they steal the Infinity using a captured Tetsuya and Great Mazinger as an improvised activation key, since he was unable to capture Lisa and use her to trigger Infinity. Lisa reveals that the final power of the Infinity is a Goragon, that is the ability to change the universe within another, by using a forced quantum overlap. Dr. Hell plans to do this as he believes this world is not worth existing. Using a giant photonic energy 3D printer to repair and upgrade the original Mazinger Z, Koji and Lisa, in the refurbished Mazinger Z, infiltrate the invaded Photon Institute, battling mechanical beasts inside to try and stop Dr. Hell and rescue Tatsuya. After defeating Baron Nanshura and Count Brocken, Mazinger Z confronts Dr. Hell's robot, but is gravely damaged. Shiro rescues Great Mazinger, and they stop the Goragon countdown, but Dr. Hell has a backup plan of Great Mazinger's activation code on his Bardos scepter and takes control of Infinity, activating Goragon. In the adjacent dimension, Koji can see an alternative universe where Lisa is his and Sayaka's daughter. Lisa uses herself, that's the robot version of it, as the key to give Mazinger a power equivalent to infinities by transmuting photonic energy into physical matter. Everyone in the planet gives their photonic energy to Mazinger Z, and Koji punches infinity with Dr. Hell outside of the planet where it explodes, thus ending the threat. Lisa disappears, assuring Koji that they'll see each other again. And meanwhile, June gives birth to her and Tetsuya's child. Afterwards, Koji, Sakaya marry, and they are seen walking with a child that they have named Lisa. My thoughts, truth be told, it's a bit confusing to follow if you're not that familiar with the storyline from the franchise. Whether that's due to a poor translation or because it's of the nature of how Japanese anime sometimes just does not translate well over to English and pacing, or they just didn't do a very good overdub or what, I don't know. But fans who are familiar with the character property will undoubtedly find the film very well suited and will give you a proper dose of nostalgia while being fresh and new. I give it a 3.5 stars. Are you familiar with this property, John?
In name only.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll have to let you borrow a video and see what you think of it sometime. Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. And that is Pacific Rim from 2013. You haven't seen this either, right?
No, I have not.
Oh, dear. Directed by Guillermo del Toro, produced by Guillermo del Toro, Thomas Tull, John Joshney, and Mary Parent. Screenplay by Travis Beacham and Guillermo del Toro, with a story by Travis Beacham. Genre, science fiction, kaiju, alien war. Starring Charlie Hunnam, Idris Elba, Rinko Kikuchi, Charlie Day, Rob Kaczynski, Max Martini, Ron Perlman, and Mana Ashida. Production companies are Legendary Pictures and Double Dare You Productions. That's a heck of a name for a production company, right? Distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures, released July in 2013, run hour 2 hours and 12 minutes. And what it's about is in 2013, alien monsters called KAIJU emerged from an interdimensional portal called the Breach at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. In response, humanity must build massive robots called Jaegers. Each Jaeger is co-piloted by 2 or more people who share a mental link via a process called drifting, where they share the mental and physical stresses of piloting the machine. In 2020, brothers Yancey and Raleigh Beckett pilot the Jaeger Gypsy Danger to defend Anchorage, Alaska from a Category 3 kaiju codenamed Knifehead. During the confrontation, the kaiju unexpectedly pierces the Jaeger's armor, ripping out its left arm and half of its head, which pulls Yancey out of the Khan pod, which kills him. Raleigh, piloting the damaged Jaeger solo, does kill Knifehead and walks Gypsy back to shore by himself before collapsing. He is traumatized by both the loss of his brother and the strain of drifting and trying to pilot the ship alone. And as such, he decides to quit the Jaeger program. Fast forward to 5 years later, world leaders decide that they're going to cease funding for the Jaeger program and replace it with coastal walls, basically, that are supposed to protect the continents because the kaiju are appearing more frequently and Jaegers are being destroyed as quickly or more quickly than they're being built. The remaining Jaegers are relocated to Hong Kong under the command of Marshal Stacker Pentecost, who plans to destroy the breach using a tactical nuclear weapon. We tend to use tactical nuclear weapons with kaijus a lot, don't we? Yeah. Pentecost tracks down Raleigh to a wall construction site to try to recruit him for the assault, though Raleigh still remains traumatized by Yancey's death. Traveling to the Hong Kong base, the Shatterdome, Raleigh is introduced to Mako Mori, the director of the Jaeger's restoration program, and Pentecost's adopted daughter. There are only 4 Jaegers that remain in operation: the refurbished Gypsy Danger, the Russians' Cherno Alpha, the Chinese model Crimson Typhoon, and the Australian model Striker Eureka, which is piloted by the father and son team of Herc and Chuck Hansen. To try and find a new co-pilot, Raleigh participates in tryouts, deciding that Mako is drift compatible. And that basically means that they're mentally in sync with one another. During their first test, however, Raleigh falls out of alignment, reliving Yancey's death, which causes Mako to become lost in the memory of a kaiju attack she experienced in Tokyo as a little girl, nearly firing Gypsy's energy cannon inside the Shatter Dome. They do manage to get control back before anything really bad happens, but Pentecost grounds both pilots because they're not ready to really be working together yet. Pentecost consults kaiju experts Newton Giesler and Herman Gottlieb. Herman claims that the breach will stabilize and the kaiju will increase in number, but it will allow the assault to succeed. Newton suggests attempting to drift with a kaiju's brain to learn more about them instead, but he's dismissed by his colleagues. Nevertheless, regardless, he does attempt it, and he discovers that kaiju are actually bioweapons grown by alien colonists in a different dimension. The Pentecost instructs Newton to find black market dealer Hannibal Chow to obtain another kaiju brain to drift with it. Newton realizes that the kaiju hive mind gained access to his brain since drifting is a two-way link, and two new kaiju, Leatherback and Otachi, have been sent simultaneously to find him. All Jaegers, save for Gypsy Danger, are dispatched to intervene. The two new kaiju destroy the Crimson Typhoon and Cherno Alpha, while Leatherback paralyzes the Striker Eureka with an EMP blast. This forces Pentecost to send Gypsy Danger out to help, as it is the only Jaeger powered by a nuclear reactor, while the others are digital. That, in other words, an EMP blast won't stop it. Gypsy ends up killing Leatherback and Otachi shortly after, during their search for Newton. Newton and Hannibal go to harvest Otachi's secondary brain as they discover she's pregnant. But the infant kaiju bursts out and devours Hannibal before choking on its own umbilical cord, which is one of the most hilarious scenes that you see in the film. Newton and Herman drift with the infant's brain, discovering that the breach only opens in the presence of a kaiju's DNA. This revelation causes Pentecost to reveal to Raleigh that he has terminal cancer due to piloting a first-generation Jaeger, which lacked the radiation shielding that they should have had, the last time being in Tokyo. Two new kaiju are detected guarding the breach that promotes Gypsy and the repaired Striker, now going to be piloted by Pentecost and Chuck, to go ahead with their attack to try and blow up the breach with the nuclear weapon. My thoughts, for some reason there's a page out of sync here. I don't know why. Let me see if I can, I'm not going to stop it, but I'm going to turn it off real quick here. See what happened there. There's just a page missing. That's odd. Okay. Anyway, what happens, short and sweet, is Pentecost and his partner sacrifice their Jaeger to give Gypsy Danger a shot at closing the breach. And Mako and Raleigh get into the other dimension and blow up Gypsy Danger on the other side of the breach and escape in escape pods, and are are picked up in the ocean out of their escape pods, and are in the end of the kaiju attack for now is resolved. Now, my thoughts on the movie is that I absolutely love both the Jaeger designs and the kaiju designs. Thought the story was very good. Idris Elba as Pentecost was excellent. Ron Perlman was also excellent in his role as Hannibal. However, the lead, Charlie Hunnam as Raleigh, was kind of flat to me. I never really liked his character. and would have been perfectly fine if he had been killed at the end of the movie. But overall, it was a really fun movie, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Which leads us into the next film, which is Pacific Rim Uprising, which is a follow-up from 2018. This is directed by Stephen S. DeKnight, produced by Mary Parent, Cale Boyder, Guillermo del Toro, John Boyega, Femi Oguns, Thomas Tell, and John Josney. Pretty much the same team, just a different writing group. Written by Stephen S. DeKnight and Emily Carmichael, Kira Snyder, and T.S. Nowlin, based on the concepts and characters by Travis Beacham. It stars John Boyega, Scott Eastwood, Jing Tian, Kaylee Spaney, Rinko Kikuchi, reprising her role as Keiko, Bern Gorman, Adria Arjona, Max Zhang, Charlie Day, and Karan Brar. Production companies, again, Legendary Pictures and Double Dare You, and this time, instead of Warner Brothers, they're distributed by Universal Pictures. Release date was March 30th of 2018 with a 1 hour and 49-minute runtime, PG-13. It is now 2035, 10 years after the Battle of the Breach from the previous movie, in which the interdimensional portal created by the Precursors, which were the aliens that were trying to send them riding kaiju into our planet, was closed. Former Jaeger pilot Jake Pentecost, son of the Battle of the Breach hero Stacker Pentecost, is making a living by stealing and selling Jaeger parts on the black market in the Los Angeles area. After he attacks part of a disabled Jaeger's power cord to the secret workshop of a 15-year-old Jaeger enthusiast, Amara Namani, both of them are apprehended by the Pan Pacific Defense Corps following an altercation between Amara's originally made small single-pilot Jaeger Scrapper and the law enforcement Jaeger November Ajax. Jake's adoptive sister and PPDC Secretary Mako Mori persuades Jake to return to the PPDC as an instructor to avoid prison time with Amara as his recruit. Not exactly a choice. Either they go to prison or he goes back into the military. Arriving at the China version of the Shattered Dome, Jake starts training the Jaeger program cadets with the estranged former co-pilot Nate Lambert. Nate and Mako explain that the Jaeger program is being threatened by the Shao Corporation's new drone program, which offers to mass-produce Jaeger drones developed by Shao Luen and Dr. Newt Giesler. That's the guy that was doing the kaiju brain swap in the first movie. Mako is due to deliver a final assessment to determine the approval of the drones at a council meeting in Sydney, but she is killed by a rogue Jaeger known as Obsidian Fury during an altercation with the latter and Gypsy Avenger, which is Jake and Nate's Jaeger, before she can get to the meeting. Her death prompts the council to authorize and deploy the drones immediately, which is kind of the plan. That's what they wanted. Obsidian escapes into the sea before the Jaegers can apprehend it. Moments before her death, though, Mako has transmitted the location of a defunct Jaeger production facility in Russia. Jake and Nate travel there in Gypsy Avenger, but the Obsidian Fury beats them there and destroys the complex and engages them in battle. Upon destroying its reactor, they find that Obsidian Fury was actually piloted not by humans, but by a kaiju secondary brain, like the one that they saw in the first film, which testing showed was actually grown on Earth. When the drones reach their respective locations, their piloting operations are hijacked by cloned kaiju brains secretly mounted on board. The kaiju Jaeger hybrids simultaneously attack all of the Pacific Rim Shattered Domes, causing heavy casualties and incapacitating almost all of Jaegers. Herman Gottlieb and Newt try to disable the drones, but Herman discovers that Newt is actually behind the attack when he commands the kaiju Jaeger hybrids to open multiple breaches across the Pacific Rim. Newt's mind, of course, has been taken over by the Precursors, who forged the link when he drifted with the kaiju brains in the previous movie, and they're now using him to plan out their attack. Although Shao is able to destroy the drones, closing the breaches, 3 new kaiju, Hakujuka, I don't, Hakuja, there we go. Strike Thorn and Raijin have already emerged and have reached Tokyo. The team realizes that the precursor's true goal was actually to activate the Ring of Fire by detonating Mount Fuji with the kaiju's blood, which will spread toxic gas into the atmosphere, wiping out all life on Earth, while simultaneously terraforming the planet for precursor colonization. The cadets are mobilized while Gottlieb and Shao repair the 4 salvageable Jaegers. Gottlieb develops kaiju blood-powered rockets, which will launch the team to Tokyo. Although the Jaegers, including Gypsy Avenger, initially repel the 3 kaiju, Newt merges them into a mega kaiju using robotic parasites from one of Shao's factories. 3 of the 4 Jaegers are then destroyed, critically damaged, or rendered inoperable, leaving only Gypsy Avenger to stand against them. Jake and Amra, replacing the injured Nate, pilot Gypsy Avenger against the Mega Kaiju with Shao remote piloting a Scrapper and aiding them by locating a rocket and welding it to Gypsy, which sends the Jaeger, with Scrapper holding on, into the atmosphere and free-falling back to Earth, colliding with the Mega Kaiju and killing it. Jake and Amra survive by transferring from Gypsy Avenger over to Scrapper, which was kind of a weird thing, how they did that, but okay. Furious at the Mega Kaiju's death, Newt initiates his secondary plan, but he is knocked out and captured by Nate. In a pre-credits cutscene, Newt threatens that their victory is meaningless because the precursors are going to keep sending attacks, but Jake reboots that humanity will soon be able to be the ones attacking the precursors. There is supposed to be a 3rd film that hasn't come out yet. This film is not as good as the first film in terms of story overall. It makes sense, it flows, but something's not quite right. I can't put my finger on it. Boyega, though, and the cast overall were more engaging than Hunnam was as Raleigh. And I kind of wish that they had Boyega in the first film as the son of Idris Elba, who didn't know he was dying of cancer, and they could have had that story instead, in the first film. Because, we didn't even know that he existed in the first film, So I think that would have been a little bit better story in the first film to have Boyega and the character in that first film. But anyway, I give Pacific Rim Uprising 3.5 stars. And I think you have one more film, don't you?
Yeah. Yes. Kong Skull Island. So, because we didn't have time to make graphics, hold on just 1 second. Okay, this is from 2017. It's directed by Jordan Vogt Roberts. This is the second movie in Warner Brothers Legendary Pictures MonsterVerse. The 2014 Godzilla was the first, and Godzilla King of the Monsters is the third, and of course Godzilla versus Kong, which is now out in theaters. So it stars Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson, John Goodman, Brie Larson, and John C. Reilly. Produced by Thomas Tull, Mary Parent, John Jashny, and Alex Garcia. Screenplay by Dan Gilroy, Max Borenstein, and Derek Connolly. Production company is Legendary Pictures, distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures, released on March 24th, 2001. Sorry,
You're all right.
reading March 10th, 2017. That's when it was released. Sorry, I was reading the wrong thing.
Happens.
So, what it's about. In 1944, two World War II fighter pilots, American pilot Hank Marlowe and Japanese pilot Gunpei Ikari, parachute onto an island in the South Pacific after a dogfight and engage in close combat until the fight is interrupted by a giant ape. And fast forward to 1973, Bill Randa, head of the U.S. government organization Monarch, plans a search for primeval creatures on the recently discovered Skull Island. He recruits a U.S. Army unit commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Preston Packard, tracker and former British Special Air Service Captain James Conrad, that's Tom Hiddleston, and anti-war photographer Mason Weaver, that's Brie Larson.
Okay.
Arriving at Skull Island, Packard's men, and I should say Colonel Packard is Samuel L. Jackson. Packard's men began dropping seismic explosives developed by Randa's seismologist Houston Brooks, and Randa is the character John Goodman plays, to map out the island and prove Brooks's hollow Earth theory. The unit is then attacked by the giant ape, scattering the survivors across the island. Two groups form between the survivors, one with Conrad Weaver, Nibs, the researchers, and one of the soldiers, the other with Randa and the rest. Packard searches for the transport helicopter piloted by Major Jack Chapman, intending to use the weapons on board to kill the ape. Conrad's group encounters the local Iwi natives and an older Marlowe, who's played by John C. Reilly. Marlowe tells the group the giant ape named Kong protects the island from predators, including a race of subterranean reptilian creatures he dubs skull crawlers, responsible for killing Kong's entire species, leaving him the last of his kind. The Iwi believes when Kong dies, a giant skull crawler will awaken and ravage the island. Marlowe reveals he and Ikari had become friends during their time on the island, but Ikari was killed by a skull crawler some time ago. As Chapman is ambushed and devoured by a skull crawler, Conrad's group helps Marlowe finish a boat made from parts of Marlowe's and Ikari's downed planes. They ride down the river where Nibs is torn apart by carnivorous birds and secure communication with Packard's group. When they regroup with Packard, he insists on searching for Chapman. Marlowe leads them to a mass grave of dinosaurs and Kong's family members. The skull crawler that killed Chapman attacks them, killing Randa and others before Weaver triggers a flammable gas explosion that kills it. Learning of Chapman's death, Packard reveals his plan to kill Kong and avenge his fallen men. Marlowe and Brooks attempt to explain that killing Kong would lead to the skull crawlers running rampant, but Packard refuses to listen. The groups part ways, with Packard's group retrieving the weapons from Chapman's chopper and laying a trap for Kong at a nearby lake, while the non-military personnel head back to the boat. Conrad and Weaver meet Kong up close and, seeing his true peaceful nature, resolve to save him. Packard's group lures Kong with the remaining seismic charges and incapacitates him with ignited napalm. Conrad, Weaver, and Marlowe arrive, and after a standoff, persuade the other soldiers to spare Kong, but Packard refuses to yield. As the others retreat, the giant skull crawler emerges from the lake, and Kong crushes Packard. The skull crawler fights and overpowers Kong, but in the end, the ape is victorious with the humans' help. The survivors reach the rendezvous point and leave the island as Kong stoically watches. And in a there are two post-credit scenes. One of which um, involves Marlowe, and it's a really sweet scene, and he gets a resolution um, that is really really nice. Um, I won't spoil that one,
All
but
right.
and then in another post-credit scene, Monarch detains and recruits Conrad and Weaver. San Lin and Brooks inform them that Kong is not the only Monster King and show archive footage of cave paintings depicting, well, you can probably guess.
Right.
Needless to say, it ties in quite nicely with Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
I
so,
I've never seen that movie. Listening to the description of the story arc, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like a typical type movie in that of this nature where humans do what they do that they shouldn't do. You know, um, it has a very strong casting.
yeah,
Um, Although I think Brie Larson was probably lost amongst all the uh, star power.
I think, I think she does hold her own. And of course, being the female, she does get a classic Fay Ray in Kong's hand moment.
Mm,
Um, but you know, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson is basically Samuel L. Jackson. You
right.
know,
But Tom Hiddleston's no slouch, and John C.
no,
Reilly's no slouch.
I love John C. Riley in this movie, and you know, John C. Riley's hit or miss for me. There's some movies like I loved him in Chicago. You know, I have I haven't seen some of most of the comedies he's done because they look just a little too raunchy for my
Mm,
liking. But he was really really good in this movie, and you know you get to really like his character, and you know you really want you really want him to survive.
mm-hmm.
Um, and and so when he gets a post credit scene,
It's like, yeah, you want him to survive, and you want Jackson's character to bite it.
yeah,
Basically,
yep,
yeah,
yep.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
get it.
but
Um,
it's a very entertaining movie. Kong looks awesome, and I really enjoyed it. So so I'd give it 4 stars. You know, it does do pretty much exactly what you expect it to do, but it does it really well.
right, and you know, the funny thing is, we've been going through all these films, and it's the same producers
Yeah,
all the way through. Not, you know, even the Pacific Rim had the same producers as the other film. It's like, so okay, when do the Jaegers start showing up? Hey, Godzilla, poke!
that would be something.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, I mean, that probably wouldn't happen because I don't see why. Because yet Godzilla is never really the bad character, you know, in any of these films, per se. But yeah, I mean, after going through all this, are you interested or excited to see the new?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay, I'm. I had no interest in it whatsoever. Like I didn't have really interest when I went with you and Tracy to see it, see King of the Monsters. I had zero interest when I went with you guys to that. But that means I have no expectations going into a movie, and that's probably a good thing. Is we've talked a little about the modern stuff. Obviously, you haven't seen the original Kong in a long time. You've seen it. I've seen it. We haven't. Either one of us have not seen it in years.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the '70s era one?
I did.
Okay.
The one where the quote giant robot ended up being a guy in a monkey suit or mask, at least.
Yeah. I don't know. My remembrance of Kong was the 77, 78 movie.
76.
76 movie. Okay.
Yep. The one with Jessica Lange and Jeff Bridges in it.
Yes. That's my first remembrance of seeing Kong and anything, and I didn't see it when it came out because in '76 I was 4 years old. And the parents were not taking me to see that at 4 years old.
I would have turned 1 year old, so I definitely didn't see it when it came out.
Yeah, I think I don't think I saw that until like maybe 79 or 80, maybe. That sounds about right. 79 or 80, maybe even later than that.
I don't remember when I saw it. I just remember I rented it from Blockbuster because that's what we did back in the day.
Who misses Blockbuster?
Oh,
seriously, I miss video stores. I miss video stores.
Yeah,
because I don't have the type of TV where you can do the downloadable stuff that you can do today.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the convenience of all the channels that you can buy and whatever thing you get all this stuff you can pick from and everything. That's cool. But there was something about being able to go to a store and browse and come across a video or a movie you hadn't heard of.
Yeah.
And pick it up off the shelf and read it and say, "Hey,
exactly.
This might be something I want to watch." So
and it's harder to do that with streaming services. One, there's so much content and it's not really well curated.
No, it's not curated at all. Let me tell everybody a little story. I was trying to tell my father about how Netflix and other things like that worked. So we went over to John's house because he has that, and he turned it on and he started to show my dad how it worked. Maybe how long was it? 5 seconds. He said nope and turned around and walked out of the house.
Something like that. he was not impressed.
Not remotely impressed. That's one of the reasons why we don't have it in my house. Because he's like, I'm not buying that stuff, and I don't need it really, But it's kind of weird because I like the idea of being able to rent something and returning it rather than having to buy everything. There's not, I'll go to Walmart and I'll see stuff I like, but I'm not paying the price, $12, $15 a video. If I could rent it for $2 or $3 and return it when I'm done viewing it, because a lot of these movies you watch them once, that's it, you're done, But I don't know. I guess they have red boxes now, I guess.
Yeah.
But I've never been, I don't know how those really work.
Well, it's basically like a mobile video store. You go up to the kiosk
Right.
You
I mean,
select.
yeah, but you got to use first you have to use a credit card, which I don't like the idea of that.
Yeah.
And secondly, they don't have anywhere near the selection.
Oh no, no.
So it's like, well, I can, a lot of times I'll look at it and say, well, what's even available, and like the whole thing's empty anyway. It's like, well, okay, what was the point of that? So I kind of wonder why we did away with those type of stores. I think that's, kind of foolish in a way, but who am I? Right? I guess everybody just watches everything on the computer these days or downloads.
Well, funnily enough, there is actually a documentary on Netflix called The Last Blockbuster.
Yes, I've heard.
So which I've watched, and I mean Netflix certainly had something to do with it, but from the way the documentary makes it seem like there were bad decisions made on Blockbuster's upper management part.
Well, not. I don't know. I mean, okay, so Blockbuster went out. Why does that stop Video Time? Why does that stop all the other video stores that were around? Blockbuster was not. They might be one of the biggest chains, but they were not the whole of video sales or video rental.
Yeah.
That was one of the fun things I thought was great about the Blue Devil character in Swamp Thing. He ran a video store.
Yes.
Nobody ever came to. And I'm like, what do you mean nobody ever comes to the video store? I'd be in there all the damn time.
I'd go to that store.
Weird, man. What the hell? I mean, you're in freaking Louisiana in the middle of the freaking swamp. What's there to do? Yeah. Either go outside and get bit by mosquitoes and crap all day, or stay inside and watch movies. Let me think. But I don't know. But yeah, I mean that's one of the things I've always kind of thought was weird when they went out of business. Is like, because it wasn't just those stores. I mean, you could rent movies at supermarkets.
Mm-hmm.
You could rent, so it's like, it just didn't make sense when that came to an end. I really don't understand that one.
So now it's pretty much either streaming or the library.
Yeah, streaming or the library. That's true. And sooner or later, they're going to get rid of libraries, I think.
Oh.
Well, it just seems like the attitude of society. I'm waiting for 451 to show up. You know what I mean by that, right? Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah.
I'm expecting it at some point in our future, even though Bradbury warned us not to do it. But
which is a movie I also saw on Netflix streaming services for the first time.
Okay. Well, which version did you see?
Francois Truffaut's version.
Okay.
With Julie Christie.
Yeah. Okay. There's actually a Michael B. Jordan version that was made recently of that.
I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, I've got it at the house, so that might be something else you can borrow sometime. We got to make a list of all the stuff we've got and email it to each other and figure out. We'll swap videos around or something.
Yeah.
All righty, folks. It's a little bit after. It's 11, and we ran a little bit late tonight. So how about we just call it a night, and I'll see you guys sometime tomorrow for live draw. We haven't finalized my stuff. I'll be doing some sketch work though. So, in the meantime, if you have questions, you reach us at lewis.brightraven on Facebook, Twitter at lewisbrightraven2. I'm on DeviantArt at deviantart.com/brightraven. Quoth Raven, Lewis Brightraven is the YouTube channel you're watching. Quoth Raven LBR72 is a Gmail account, and that's where you want to send questions to me about the show or questions you want me to answer on the show. And if I don't happen to answer that, you can try the lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. If you want to reach John, it's Figaro at hotmail.com.
Yes.
I'm not sure what you might want to ask him, but maybe you want to ask him about his voiceover work or his musical stuff that he does. If you guys don't know, he did the musical intro and outro theme for the show. So, maybe you can hire him to do some musical work for you as well. So there's that. On again, Saturday and Sunday, I'll be doing sketch work. Monday, we'll have comics news and reviews. I did get something in the mail today, so I'll be unpacking and sharing that on Monday, as well as the other books I mentioned on Wednesday of last week, or this past Wednesday. Wednesdays is What Did You Get This Week, which is where I talk about what I bought at the comic shop this week. Thursdays, which we did not have this week because my guests, one of them got sick, the other one just didn't show up. It's usually a guest night, roundtable talk discussion, and Fridays is genre night. And hopefully next week, I'll have my people now. Next week for Thursday, my guest will be Ted Davies, artist and writer from Michigan. We'll be talking about his titles. He's been a guest on the show before, but he'll be back on the show, talk about his upcoming Kickstarter, and we might have some other guests as well for Thursday. And Friday, I'm going to try and get my creators that were supposed to be here this week, next week for the talk on favorite horror comics. We'll try. We'll see what goes on. Okay, so I want to thank you all for watching. Again, Saturdays and Sundays is our live draw. So we'll see you guys tomorrow sometime, probably in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. Until then, have a good weekend and have a good night.